Welcome to AppleKnows channel. I am an apple, yes, just an apple, but I see more than you think. I will tell you stories that changed the world forever, stories of inventions so revolutionary that it is almost impossible to believe they were real. Sit tight, because once you hear these facts, you will never look at industry and progress the same way again. Do you know that one of the most world-shattering inventions came from something as simple as a spinning wheel? In the late 18th century, the spinning jenny was created by James Hargreaves. Imagine one worker suddenly being able to spin 8 threads at once instead of one. Factories began to grow, towns turned into industrial giants, and ordinary families were dragged from their small homes into the roaring noise of machines. What makes it almost unbelievable is how quickly it all happened. Within a single generation, entire societies shifted from farming to factories. But let's step deeper into the story. Coal and iron, two dull materials, turned into weapons of transformation. In 1856, Henry Bessemer invented a process that could turn iron into steel in just minutes. Before that, steel was rare, expensive, and used only for swords or luxury. Suddenly, it became cheap. Cities shot up with steel skeletons. Bridges stretched farther than anyone thought possible. Trains thundered across continents. To think that one single process created the backbone of modern civilization, it feels unreal, but it is the truth. Here's a shocker: the first industrial robot was born in 1961, long before many people even imagined artificial intelligence or automation. It was called Unimate. A giant mechanical arm that welded hot metal in a General Motors factory. Workers were stunned. The machine never got tired, never complained, never made mistakes. Today, robots dominate factories, but back then, people felt they were staring at science fiction come alive. Some even feared they were watching the end of human labor. Now, let's not forget about one invention that seems so ordinary today that you might underestimate it: the steam engine. James Watt didn't invent it from scratch, but his improvements in the 1770s made it powerful and efficient enough to drive trains, ships, and machines. It is hard to believe, but before Watt, the world's fastest travel was limited to the speed of a horse. After him, humans could move faster than nature had ever allowed. That leap was not just progress, it was a shockwave that changed human psychology itself. And here's where I, an apple, smile knowingly. The very idea of innovation often comes from strange sparks. Consider electricity. When Thomas Edison built the first practical light bulb in 1879, people laughed at him. Gas lamps were everywhere, and electricity seemed dangerous. Yet soon, nights turned into endless working hours, factories no longer depended on daylight, and entire cities glowed like artificial suns. What's almost unbelievable is how quickly humanity surrendered to the bulb. It took less than 40 years for millions of people to forget darkness as their ancestors knew it for millennia. There is also the invention of the assembly line by Henry Ford in 1913. It sounds simple today: one worker does one task repeatedly, but its effect was earth-shattering. A car that used to take over 12 hours to build could now be produced in less than 2. Ordinary people, not just the rich, could own cars. Society itself changed. Suddenly, workers could live miles away from their jobs. Suburbs were born. Highways stretched endlessly. All because of a moving belt and a man obsessed with efficiency. And here is a fact that might make you pause: the very device you are using right now to listen to me traces its roots back to a room-sized machine in 1946. ENIAC, the first general-purpose computer, weighed 30 tons and consumed so much electricity that lights in Philadelphia dimmed when it was switched on. The idea that this monstrous machine evolved into the phone in your pocket, something you casually use while sipping coffee, is almost too strange to believe. You see, inventions are not just tools. They are shocks, revolutions, earthquakes under society's feet. And the strangest part is this: every single invention I've told you about was doubted, mocked, or feared at the start. Yet each one became the heartbeat of modern life. I promise you that the inventions ahead will bend your mind in ways you might not expect. Here is one that sounds unbelievable: the match. Yes, a small stick that bursts into flame when struck. Before the 1800s, making fire was slow, dirty, and often unreliable. In 1826, John Walker created the friction match by accident while stirring chemicals with a stick. Imagine living in a world where fire was precious and then suddenly being able to light it instantly. It was a revolution so simple, so small, that people barely noticed its magnitude. Yet without matches, factories, kitchens, railroads, even wars would have been unimaginable at the speed they unfolded. But what if I told you that refrigeration was more world-changing than fire for the modern age? Until the late 19th century, ice was literally cut from frozen lakes, stored in insulated houses, and shipped across oceans. Then came mechanical refrigeration. Suddenly, food could be kept fresh for weeks. Entire industries were born: supermarkets, frozen food companies, global shipping of meat and produce. What seems normal to you today was once as astonishing as science fiction. And here's the twist: without refrigeration, antibiotics like penicillin would not have been stored properly, vaccines would have spoiled, and modern medicine might not exist as we know it. Now, listen closely. One invention that feels almost sinister in its simplicity: barbed wire. Invented in 1874 by Joseph Glidden, it was nothing more than twisted steel with sharp points. But with it, the American West changed forever. Farmers fenced off land, cattle ranching transformed, and the endless open plains were closed. Something as tiny as a wire reshaped nations, sparked conflicts, and altered the map of ownership. Who would believe such a small object could decide the fate of millions? And then comes dynamite. Alfred Nobel, yes, the same Nobel whose name is now tied to peace prizes, gave the world an explosive 10 times stronger than anything before it. Dynamite carved railroads through mountains, built tunnels, opened mines. It also killed countless workers and soldiers. Nobel himself was so disturbed by how his invention was used that he devoted his fortune to the Nobel Prizes. Imagine the irony: a man who created destruction now remembered as a symbol of peace. But wait, what if I told you that the invention that truly turned humans into global creatures was not the airplane, but the shipping container? In 1956, Malcolm McLean invented the standard container for cargo. A simple metal box with universal dimensions. It sounds boring, but it dropped shipping costs by over 90%. Factories in Asia could now cheaply send goods to Europe or America. This one idea gave birth to globalization. Today, over 90% of all trade moves in containers. The modern world, the cheap clothes, electronics, even food, would collapse without it. And then comes something that is almost too strange to grasp: the internet. It was never designed for you. It began as ARPANET in 1969, a military project to connect computers in case of nuclear war. No one imagined it would evolve into the largest network of communication, business, and culture the world has ever seen. Think about it: a system created for destruction became the fabric of modern civilization. That is not just surprising, it feels like one of history's biggest accidents. These facts will stretch your sense of reality. Consider the cotton gin, invented by Eli Whitney in 1793. It sounds innocent: a machine to separate cotton fibers from seeds. But here's the twist: it exploded the production of cotton in the United States and, almost paradoxically, intensified slavery rather than diminishing it. One man's invention changed the economy, society, and morality of an entire nation. It is almost impossible to believe that a small mechanical device could have such deep consequences on human lives. Or take the steam turbine. Invented in the late 19th century by Charles Parsons, it could generate electricity more efficiently than anything before. Before this, entire cities were limited in size by the power they could produce. After the turbine, huge industrial cities sprang up almost overnight. Factories, transport systems, and even homes were transformed. It seems almost magical: machines creating power that reshaped the very structure of society. Here's a fact that will shock you: the development of the Haber-Bosch process. Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch figured out how to create ammonia from nitrogen in 1909. Why is this unbelievable? Because this invention literally feeds the world. Without it, billions of people today would starve. Yet the same process also enabled explosives that fueled some of history's deadliest wars. One chemical process both created life and destruction on an unprecedented scale. And now for one that seems absurd: the pneumatic tire. John Boyd Dunlop perfected it in 1888 for bicycles, but its ripple effect is astonishing. Cars, planes, trucks, even spacecraft depend on air-filled tires for performance and safety. A simple invention like a rubber tube with air inside reshaped transport globally. Without it, industrial growth, trade, and even urban design would have been dramatically different. Have you ever considered how one invention turned entire cities upside down? I am talking about the elevator. Elisha Otis's safety elevator in 1853 made skyscrapers possible. Imagine New York or Chicago without elevators, cities would remain low and sprawling. This small but genius invention made vertical living not just feasible but desirable. Suddenly, humans could live and work hundreds of feet above the ground. A world that seemed impossible became reality in decades. Now, here's one that defies logic: the internal combustion engine. Nicolas Otto developed it in 1876, but its implications were colossal. Cars, trucks, planes, and even modern farming relied on this single invention. Entire cities, cultures, and economies grew around it. Think about it: without one engine design, our world of rapid travel, suburban expansion, and industrial mobility would not exist. And do not even get me started on plastics. Leo Baekeland created Bakelite in 1907, the first fully synthetic plastic. It sounds harmless, even mundane. But consider this: one invention gave rise to everything from electrical insulation to household goods, toys, and medical devices. Today, the ubiquity of plastics is almost invisible, yet it fundamentally changed human life. A single invention transformed society without most people ever noticing. The most mind-bending part? Every one of these inventions began as something doubted, mocked, or feared. They seemed impossible, dangerous, or trivial, yet they became pillars of modern industry. And the shock is this: even today, there are inventions quietly reshaping the world in ways almost no one notices. These facts will make your jaw drop. Let's start with the radio. Guglielmo Marconi sent the first transatlantic wireless signal in 1901. Sounds simple, right? But think about it: before that moment, communication across oceans took weeks. Suddenly, messages could travel in seconds. Diplomacy, war, commerce, and entertainment were forever changed. A single invention made the world smaller, faster, and infinitely more connected. It's almost impossible to grasp how revolutionary this was until you imagine waiting weeks for news that could now arrive instantly. Here's one that might shock you: synthetic dyes. In 1856, William Perkin accidentally created mauve while trying to synthesize quinine. This tiny laboratory mistake unleashed a fashion revolution. Fabrics could now be bright, durable, and colorful in ways that had been impossible for centuries. Entire industries, textiles, chemicals, fashion exploded, all because of one unexpected chemical reaction. An accident changed how the world looked, quite literally. And now, the jet engine. Sir Frank Whittle and Hans von Ohain independently developed it in the 1930s. The result? Planes that could fly faster than sound. Air travel was transformed from a luxury for the elite into a global phenomenon. Wars were fought in ways no one had anticipated, economies connected in hours instead of days, and the very idea of distance was rewritten. One engine changed the scale of human ambition and movement forever. Then there is the laser. Theodore Maiman first made it work in 1960, and at first, people thought it was just a scientific curiosity. Today, lasers cut steel, perform surgery, read barcodes, enable communication through fiber optics, and even guide weapons with precision. A single invention, born from pure physics, touches almost every part of modern life, yet most people never think about it. Now, consider the transistor. Invented in 1947 by John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley, it is smaller than a grain of rice. But without it, computers, phones, satellites, and even the internet would not exist. One tiny device made entire industries possible. To think that the digital age rests on such a minuscule invention is almost unbelievable. Here's a fact that will make you question reality: synthetic rubber. Before World War II, almost all rubber came from natural latex. When access was cut off, chemists developed synthetic alternatives. Suddenly, cars, planes, tires, and countless industrial applications could continue even under siege. A world war accelerated a technological breakthrough that permanently changed industry. And let's not forget anesthesia. In the 1840s, the first public use of ether allowed surgeries that were previously unimaginable. Imagine a world where even minor surgery was almost always fatal from pain or infection. An invention so medical, so humane, reshaped hospitals, medicine, and life expectancy. Simple, yet revolutionary. Every single invention I've told you about seemed impossible at first, and yet, each one reshaped industries, societies, and the course of history. The pattern is almost eerie: humanity doubts, fears, or ignores innovation, and then the world changes forever in ways no one could have predicted. Consider the humble paperclip. Yes, a tiny bent piece of metal. It seems trivial, almost laughable. Yet it became an indispensable tool in offices, schools, and industries worldwide. Its simplicity belies its genius, a device so small that it quietly holds together countless documents, contracts, and legal papers, subtly supporting global commerce every single day. Hard to believe that one little piece of wire quietly shaped bureaucracy everywhere. Here's one that's truly mind-bending: the escalator. Invented by Jesse W. Reno in 1891, it seems mundane today. But before it, moving crowds efficiently in department stores, train stations, and airports was a logistical nightmare. Escalators reshaped architecture, urban planning, and shopping culture. A machine that moves people continuously, simple, but it revolutionized human flow in ways people rarely consider. And now, something that sounds almost futuristic even today: GPS. The system of satellites that allows any smartphone, car, or plane to know its exact position began as a military project in the 1970s. Few imagined it would become the backbone of global navigation, logistics, and even personal travel. The fact that we now rely on a network of orbiting machines to move safely through streets and skies is astonishing. A technology that sounds like science fiction now controls the rhythm of daily life. Next, the humble zipper. Gideon Sundback invented it in 1913. It's hard to believe, but this small mechanical device transformed clothing, luggage, shoes, and even safety gear. Entire fashion industries adapted because of a little row of interlocking teeth. The zipper is proof that one simple invention can reshape manufacturing, design, and daily life without anyone realizing its revolutionary power. Here's a truly shocking one: the printing press. Invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century, it seems obvious now, but at the time, it was pure magic. Suddenly, books could be mass-produced. Knowledge spread faster than ever before. Literacy soared. Entire societies, religions, and governments were transformed. One machine made the modern world possible, and it all started with movable metal letters. Then there's the humble paper. Yes, paper. Ancient, yet the invention of mass papermaking in China, and later mechanized in Europe, created the infrastructure for bureaucracy, science, literature, and communication. Without it, printing, education, and record-keeping would have been impossible. It's almost hard to imagine the modern world without such a simple invention. And finally, for now, the elevator safety brake. Elisha Otis' invention in 1852 wasn't flashy, but it made vertical cities possible. Before that, elevators were too dangerous to use with confidence. One mechanism, one failsafe, turned skyscrapers from impossible dreams into living realities. Humanity literally reached for the sky because of it. The pattern is clear: the most revolutionary inventions often appear simple, mundane, or even ridiculous at first. Yet they quietly reshape industries, societies, and the very way we live. And here's the truth you might not realize: there are countless inventions even now, hiding in plain sight, quietly altering the world while most of us remain unaware. These are facts that will shock even the most seasoned observers of history. Take the pneumatic tube system. Invented in the 19th century, it allowed physical messages and packages to travel through networks of tubes at incredible speeds using air pressure. Today, we barely notice its legacy, but it transformed banking, offices, and even hospitals, creating the first instant delivery systems long before the internet. A seemingly strange invention quietly rewrote logistics. Now consider the light switch. Simple? Yes. Revolutionary? Absolutely. Before the easy-on, easy-off mechanism, controlling electricity in homes was cumbersome and dangerous. The safety and convenience it provided made electrification in everyday life practical and scalable. A tiny lever, a small click, and entire cities became livable at night. Here's a shocker: the mechanical clock. Invented in medieval Europe, it changed everything about work, trade, and life. People's daily routines shifted from natural cues like sunrise to precise schedules dictated by gears and springs. Society itself became synchronized, industrial planning became possible, and the very concept of punctuality reshaped human behavior. A machine to measure time fundamentally altered civilization. And now, the humble stapler. It may seem trivial, but the first mechanical stapler, invented in the 19th century, allowed documents to be secured efficiently, revolutionizing office management and record-keeping. It's almost comical that one tiny device could quietly support the functioning of modern institutions, law, and commerce on a massive scale. Here's one that's truly astonishing: the safety pin. Invented in 1849 by Walter Hunt, it was a tiny piece of bent wire, yet it solved the problem of clothing and fasteners worldwide. It became essential in fashion, industry, and even medicine. Something so small and simple quietly touches millions of lives every day, yet most people never consider its impact. And the accordion of invention continues: the sewing machine. Isaac Singer didn't invent it first, but he perfected it in the mid-19th century. It's a fact? Clothing production became faster, cheaper, and accessible to the masses. Entire industries, fashion, and even the structure of households were transformed by a machine that stitches thread. Millions of lives, economies, and cultures shifted because one machine could so efficiently. And then comes the shocker of modern entertainment: motion pictures. The first moving pictures in the late 19th century seem simple now, but they created a cultural revolution. Entire industries, Hollywood, newsreels, advertising, emerged from the ability to capture time and motion. Today, the global economy, social life, and information dissemination owe their shape to this single invention. Each of these inventions shares a pattern, at first glance, mundane, small, or overlooked, yet each one quietly reshaped societies, industries, and human life. It's a humbling truth: the most powerful revolutions often hide in the smallest, simplest objects, waiting to transform the world. I am Apple from AppleKnows channel, and these facts will make you see the world differently. Let's start with the humble refrigerator magnet. Invented in the mid-20th century, it may seem trivial, but it revolutionized industrial labeling, information tracking, and even marketing. Magnetic signs and labels became essential for factories, offices, and warehouses. Something so small quietly keeps global commerce organized every day. Consider the escalator again, but from another perspective. Beyond moving crowds, it enabled multi-story retail and transportation hubs, changing urban architecture forever. Department stores, airports, and subway systems could handle immense traffic. One moving belt quietly rewrote city design, urban flow, and consumer culture. Here's one that's truly astonishing: the ballpoint pen. Laszlo Biro invented it in 1938, and it replaced messy fountain pens almost overnight. It made writing faster, cleaner, and more accessible worldwide. From legal contracts to letters in war zones, this simple tool accelerated communication on a global scale. Millions of everyday transactions relied on it, yet few realize its revolutionary impact. Now consider the humble washing machine. Alva Fisher's 1908 motorized design might seem mundane, but it freed millions of hours of labor, especially for women, reshaping households and social structures. What seems like a simple appliance quietly changed labor, culture, and even gender dynamics in society. And the zipper deserves another shock: not just clothing, but industrial applications, aerospace, and safety gear depended on it. One small row of interlocking teeth revolutionized manufacturing efficiency and safety standards across countless industries. A seemingly minor invention had global consequences. Here's something truly mind-bending: the automated teller machine, the ATM, invented in 1967, it transformed finance and banking. Suddenly, people could access money without visiting a branch. It reshaped commerce, personal finance, and even urban design by allowing banks to operate differently. A single machine quietly altered the flow of money across the world. Consider the modern elevator again, but think globally. Otis's safety brake didn't just allow skyscrapers, it enabled global cities to grow vertically, concentrated industry in urban centers, and changed real estate, zoning, and transportation. One safety mechanism literally reshaped the skyline of civilization. And finally, consider the humble lightbulb socket and switch. Edison's brilliance wasn't just in creating light, but in making it controllable, safe, and scalable. It allowed factories to operate at night, revolutionized industrial labor schedules, and gave birth to the 24-hour economy. Something so simple changed work, culture, and the very rhythm of society. Every one of these inventions began as small, overlooked, or doubted innovations. And yet, each one reshaped society in ways that most people never notice. The hidden revolution of industry often lives in the tiniest, simplest objects, quietly transforming our world. Alright, then let's bring this journey to a close, but with the kind of reflection that makes all these facts truly sink in. I am Apple from AppleKnows channel, and if there's one thing you take away from this, it's this: the world we live in the cities, the industries, the very way we eat, travel, work, and communicate exists because of inventions that were once doubted, ignored, or feared. From the spinning wheel to the transistor, from the safety elevator to the shipping container, each innovation carried the power to reshape lives, economies, and entire societies. What seems ordinary to us today, a zipper, a pencil, even a simple light switch, was revolutionary at its inception. Each invention is a reminder that progress often hides in the smallest details, quietly rewriting the rules of civilization. And here's the final, almost poetic truth: humanity's history is not written by wars, empires, or leaders alone. It's written by ideas, by sparks of imagination, by the simple, brilliant inventions that refuse to stay small. They ripple outward, touching lives in ways most of us never notice, and yet without them, the modern world would be unrecognizable. So next time you pick up a pen, flip a switch, ride an elevator, or even enjoy a cold drink from your refrigerator, remember the hidden revolutions that made it possible. The ordinary is extraordinary, and every invention carries a story that can shock, inspire, and transform the way we see the world. And that, my friends, is the true power of invention.